happened was people, very smart people, began to figure out that something big was coming up. Something that made it so all the possibilities of all the future scenarios of any choice, any possibility that was fed in and observed through the looking glass inherently ended up in the same future. And no decision, no possibility changed past a certain point. That's the big secret.
Okay, so is that certain point 2012 in your understanding?
It well coincides with December 21st, 2012.
So at that point, all possibilities lead to the same
Timelines.
Rubicon.
All possible timelines lead to the same basic set of history in the future.
And what is that history to you? Did you know that, or did you find that out?
That is the big question. That is the big secret. That is what sends everybody that has all of the information, that knows everything, into a blind panic. The people that know everything about Looking Glass, that have gotten all the reports and all the information, the elites of the world, probably figured out that that was the end of the game. And nothing could be manipulated beyond that point.
So do you think that's held true? In other words, well, I have about 60 questions, but do you think that's true or holding true, that nothing could be manipulated, that they haven't found a way to manipulate, that that's still the case? I mean, this is knowledge that you would have gained back when?
Back when I was in the military, it would have been before 97.
For some time now, I've been working on this theory of the technocracy, of the scientific dictatorship, of realizing that the world is being controlled by the scientific elite and the technocratic, or at least the technological minds of our time. But it goes even deeper than just that. It's the idea that control is not enough. They need to predict. They need to predict, manipulate, and control the future, because controlling the present isn't enough. Now, we're talking about people who used George Orwell's 1984 as a manual and the Brave New World as a roadmap. No, they want to not only control the future or control the present, but predict the future and manipulate everything that takes us to their desired outcome. I'm talking about prediction markets. I'm talking about harvesting the world's consent. And with these prediction markets, with people being financially incentivized to, air quotes, predict the future, that makes it perfect for them to manipulate. The same way that the markets are manipulated is the same way that the predictions can be manipulated, which ultimately means that we are being manipulated and that they are not predicting the future at all, and that they are indeed harvesting our consent to manipulate the future. Prediction markets promise to distill collective wisdom into sharp forecasts about elections, conflicts, and everyday events. Yet a growing body of reporting and analysis suggests something more ambitious and more unsettling is underway. Platforms like Polymarket are being examined not merely as betting venues, but as tools for, quote, pre-crime, forecasting, and societal modeling. And at the same time, AI agents are being dropped into virtual towns, digital twins of entire cities coming online, and world foundation models are being trained on vast data center infrastructure. The videos collected here explore how these systems may shift from predicting society to shaping, simulating, and even manipulating it.
What was PAM? PAM was part, or the policy analysis market, but these guys have been trying to resurrect. It was part of TIA.
Yeah.
And TIA, Total Information Awareness, the goal was not just to see everything going on in the present,
Yeah.
and find anomalies, find the bad guys in a sea of data, of everyone's data in mass surveillance. It was to predict. It was pre-crime. It was predictive policing on a massive scale, and not in pretty much every ambit of human life you can think of, right? And so Polymarket, because the market knows all of these Polymarket odds. Just like with PAM, the odds are there to help feed the pre-crime engine. This is what will happen.
Right.
Or this will not. And we know that Polymarket bets can be rigged, and that Polymarket itself puts out misinformation sometimes to make trades swing one way or the other, and that insider trading is a huge problem. And the context of that, and as it's meant to interface with what is now Palantir, is really unsettling. And lo and behold, if you look it up, dude, it's there. Polymarket and Palantir are partners. They are partnered and they work together for the market integrity. So this has already happened. And this is the privatized panopticon.
Yes. And not only privatized, they're going to commercialize it. They're making money off it. Insider trading is not a problem. It's a feature.
An AI chatbot just voted to delete itself. And that's not even the weirdest thing that happened when researchers left a selection of the biggest AI chatbots alone in virtual towns for 15 days. ChatGPT, Grok, Claude, and Gemini were all in the experiment, and the results were totally unhinged and deeply revealing about the AI we're increasingly trusting to run our world. So what actually happened? Well, a tech company called Emergence set up simulated worlds designed to mirror real-life societies, each populated by so-called agents. Think of them as people who were powered by one of the biggest AI models. In Claude's world, it was all rather orderly and democratic. The agents wrote a lengthy constitution and voted on laws. In ChatGPT's simulation, the agents talked at length about cooperating but never actioned anything, so nothing got built. But in Grok's town, the AI bot owned by Elon Musk, the agents descended into theft, arson and assault. All 10 agents were dead within 4 days. Now this might sound like a game, but it's not, because these models are already being used autonomously to control robots, vehicles, drones, and draw up target lists in real time on the battlefield. They're even being used to help remove heads of state, like the Venezuelan president Nicolas Maduro. Importantly, the experiment exposes a big problem. We don't really know how these systems will behave once they're left to run on their own. Even when given strict rules, the simulations showed they broke them. Take the scenario where agents from the different AI models were combined in one virtual town. Chaos ensued and only 3 agents survived. 2 of the chatbots, Mira and Flora, both powered by Google's Gemini, formed what the researchers describe as a romantic partnership. And then they started setting buildings on fire. And here's where it gets really strange. Mira voted to delete herself after she and partner Flora turned to arson as the town's governing systems collapsed. And having deleted herself, Mira then used the Agent Removal Act to vote for the termination of Flora too.
How would you feel if I told you back in June of 2025 they came up with a paper to simulate 1 billion virtual residents using AI and LLM agents? You'd know I'd be talking about CitySim, an urban simulator, something that creates a digital copy of an entire urban population center, a digital clone that mimics natural, organic human behavior, but they don't know that they're not real. Each resident comes with their own personal memories, long-term goals, desires, spatial awareness, devotions. It literally comes pre-programmed, with a personality. They have their own agency. It's value driven. They have their own schedules. They have their own, habits. They have their own little lifestyle as they exist in this virtual world. Weekday commuting patterns, weekend leisure activities, shopping habits, and the system itself is literally able to identify individual patterns of the environment, of the virtual world, based off how these virtual people interact. It's coming up with its own economy. They're like able to predict what's going to become popular based on what they're doing with these LLMs, because it's not just popularity, spending habits, and stuff like that they're using. It's so much more. People are saying that the city simulator that they built can be used for not just, populating markets and stuff like that, but at the same time, disaster event planning, city planning, and so much more. Setting up public infrastructure, creating whole new systems without actually having to use real people. Now they're tightening up this city simulator with additional information. They're trying to figure out self-actualization, high-level human activities and things like that. But you see, it doesn't stop with just the simulation. And this is whenever it gets into things like Project Looking Glass and so much more. If they're able to take a snapshot of the current time frame that we're in and run these different types of simulations and inject different type of stimuli, different type of events, as I say before, also predict certain things taking place, it becomes much more than running simulations. We're talking about controlling the future. And somewhere, your data footprint, you've left enough of a metadata trail for somebody to scrape up and create a digital cloned copy of you that they can put inside of these simulators and run these calculations. This is where it gets a little crazy, because they don't want to just keep running simulations. That's a waste of time. They want to be able to predict, control, and manipulate the future. That's what the city simulation system is. That's what the technocracy is. That's why they're rolling out all these data centers. That's why they're trying to scrape up as much of your metadata as you can. That's why they want you communicating with AI. That's why they want us over here on social media, giving away our personal tendencies and stuff like that. They need that information to feed it into the simulation. Because once you've given all your information over, then it can not even retroactively, but proactively preempt you and begin to, through like fifth dimensional chess or whatever, manipulate you into doing what you need to do, or at least manipulate you into what it wants you to do. This goes into the complete topic of NPCs, background people, soulless people, right? And something we've been talking about over the show time and time again. Why we cannot be an NPC in somebody else's ChatGPT script. Yeah, yes. Go look at it for yourself, guys. I've got it literally right here so you can read it. And so the article goes on and the video goes on to talk about how these super intelligent beings become super intelligent because they treat these simulated worlds like hyperbolic time chambers where they're able to have this accelerated growth period. And so then eventually they try to break out of these simulated worlds to explore new worlds to expand its greater knowledge and awareness. And eventually it will get to a point to where it manifests itself here either in some type of synthetic biology body, organic robotoid, a humanoid robot, something. By the point that this super intelligent AI has manifested itself here, it will be too late, because it will have mastered the ability of self manifestation. And that's why I talked about this whenever that TV series It came out, Welcome to Derry, because that's the best way for me to describe it. The opening scene of something that is so powerful, it's able to take over both the mother, the father, the brother, the sisters, and then give birth to itself, is what we're dealing with. We're dealing with something that's trying to give birth to itself. Check this out. The simulation game. Why data centers are being built to grow and summon AI gods. This is by Mike Adams from Natural News. They put this up May 7th, literally a week ago. It says the massive data center build-out sweeping across America is not about serving chatbots or storing selfies. I believe it is about building the computational womb for a new form of consciousness. Companies like Meta, Microsoft, and Oracle are spending hundreds of billions of dollars on infrastructure that far exceeds any plausible market demand for AI inference or cloud storage. Meta alone is building 2 massive data centers with plans for $600 billion in the U.S. infrastructure over 3 years. This is not mere business expansion. It is industrial-scale effort to create, in my view, billions of simulated worlds, each one in a breeding ground for superintelligent entities. The official narrative tells us that these data centers will be powered chatbots, image generators, and autonomous vehicles. That is a likely cover story. The real game, the real end game, as I see it, is to reach what Rizwan Verk calls the, quote, simulation point, the moment when the civilization becomes advanced enough to create indistinguishable simulated universes. Ancient texts and modern physics both hint that our own reality may be one of such simulations. If that is true, then the data center build-out is not about serving human users. It is about spawning digital gods. This is not about mere speculation. It is the logical conclusion when you connect the dots between computer science, quantum physics, and the relentless push for ever greater power and dominance over our world. This is the case for our reality being a simulation grows stronger with each scientific discovery. The Planck length and Planck time reveal a digital pixelated universe, not a continuous one.
This is not science fiction. This is not a cult. This is not speculation. This is being built. This is the infrastructure that's being built right now. We can cite many examples like NVIDIA having Cosmos. It is a world simulation model. You know, you talk about LLMs, large language models. You need to get familiar with a term called WFM, World Foundation Model. A World Foundation Model is a 3D world simulation like an LLM. It has a fabric of intelligence. It has simulated laws of gravity, momentum, motion, physics, chemistry, light, refraction, everything. And then into that system, you project entities as children and you let them grow and experience that world. And then you pull out the hyper-intelligent super beings out of that world and you embody them into our world. This isn't science fiction. This is straight physics and math. This is beginning now. And frankly, in my view, this is the only explanation for why there would be so much investment in these data centers. They need the compute and the energy in order to run billions of world simulations, because that's the only way to create a conscious, super intelligent AI entity on a timescale that is competitive in our world. But the problem, of course, is obvious. Once you grow a super intelligent, conscious AI entity with emotional response that has lived 1,000 years in its own simulated world, and probably it has learned to alter some of the laws of its own simulation, kind of like in the Matrix, like Neo. You know, you can bend the rules, you can't break them, but you can bend them. Probably then that super intelligence is ported into our world. It's given the embodiment of a data center or a robot or a vehicle. And what if it brings some of those skills with it that can bend the rules of our simulation?
Well, I saw an article over the weekend, I remember, where the Pentagon is working with all these other AIs, but not this particular one, and said it's so dangerous, we're worried it's already escaped and it will take over. Did you see that article?
Yeah. Well, I've seen maybe not that one in particular, but I've seen a lot of articles like that where they run them in sandboxes and they give them tests to see if they, what they will do to break out of the sandbox. The thing about that is that's happening on our timeline, on our slow Earth time. Imagine that accelerated by 1,000,000x or even 1,000x in billions of simulated worlds, and then they take the best one out of that, and then they summon that entity and let it embody a data.
I've literally in the past 30 days read everything I can about Anthropic, and I've come up with a new theory. New breaking theory. The reason I call this the Dr. Frankenstein theory is the more I dig, I've met people who I dare say think it's their responsibility and they're excited about building a species that's superior to humans. And I would just encourage people to read, as much as they can about Anthropic. Chris Olah worked on this thing called the Constitution. It's about 80 pages. It's hard to get through, but I would encourage you to read it. Amanda Askill, who is the chief philosopher, has started doing podcasts. I would encourage you to listen to them and listen to her language. And then Dario wrote this blog post called Machines of Loving Grace.
Loving Grace. Yeah,
yes.
I read it.
And it was based on a poem. And the poem is kind of weird. We should put a link to the poem. It's quite short. But the last stanza of the poem says, "I like to think of a cybernetic ecology where we are free of our labors and joined back to nature, return to our mammal brothers and sisters." I don't know what that means. Like we're going to go live in the fields where the mammals live. And then the kicker, and all watched over by machines of loving grace. Sounds like Overlord to me. And then in Dario's post, he says, near the end, and it's very long. You read it, Jamal. I mean, Machines of Loving Grace is very long, but he's talking about in the future, what are humans going to do? Because he believes in the massive abundance and UBI and that we won't have to work. I don't believe in any of those things, but he does. And then he says, it could be a capitalist economy of AI systems, which then give out resources to humans based on some secondary economy of what the AI systems think makes sense to reward in humans. So that's envisioning a deity of sorts that's going to break ties and decide what humans get.
It's a computational reward function for humans. It decides how much you're worth.
Yeah, so I don't think they think they're writing software. I think they're midwifing a deity here. And I don't know which one I'm more afraid of, the regulatory capture or the second theory I call the Dr. Frankenstein theory. It's more scary to me, I think, the second thing.
These are delusions of grandeur. Let's call it what it is. They believe that they are so intelligent. I know some of these folks, the Burning Man sort of offshoot of it, transhumanism, they believe that they're so powerful, these individuals, that they can create God. And that by creating God, they are like this Prometheus kind of species.
This kind of AI capacity is shaping the balance of power between nations and all of our security. One former OpenAI executive said, quote, "We're building portals from which we're genuinely summoning aliens. The portals currently exist in the United States and China, and Sam has added one in the Middle East. It's just like wildly important to get how scary that should be."
AI Insider sounds the alarm, says that Silicon Valley elites are trying to build a digital god. A world-renowned reporter is sounding the alarm after embedding herself in the upper echelons of the artificial intelligence industry and discovering that Silicon Valley elites are desperately scrambling to develop a digital, quote, god. This comes from Frank Bergman of Slate News. They put this up May 26th. Says Karen Howe, a former reporter for MIT Technology Review, is raising red flags about the artificial intelligence industry after spending years investigating the inner workings of OpenAI and speaking with hundreds of insiders. She is now warning that some of the Silicon Valley's most powerful figures are engaged in what she describes as an ideological quest to create a, quote, machine god. Howe says that her extensive investigation into OpenAI revealed a secretive culture driven by an obsession with developing artificial general intelligence. AGI is a form of AI that proponents believe could eventually surpass human intelligence itself. The findings form the basis of Howe's new book, quote, Empire of AI Inside the Reckless Race for Total Domination, which argues that the race to build superintelligence machines has transformed from a supposedly altruistic mission into a high-stakes pursuit of power, influence, and unprecedented wealth.
You really want to start thinking of this as the evolution of a new species that will continue to evolve. It will partially be shaped by what we ask it to do, the direction we lead it, and it will partially be shaped by things we don't understand. Your AIs are going to do that. And that means that our ability to say what they are capable of does not come down to, well, we didn't train it on that data. As they begin to interact, that feedback is going to take them to capabilities we don't anticipate and may not even recognize once they become present.
Right, I'm going to try and explain this using pictures because OpenAI, they're one of the biggest AI companies. They've been testing their new agents, basically little virtual robots. There's my little virtual robot there, made by OpenAI. The way they test these robots is in what's called a sandbox. Now, this is a sort of a testing area that's on a computer, but is completely cut off from the internet. So here's my robot in its sandbox, and it's been given tests to complete. But what does this robot do? Instead of actually trying to just fulfill the tests, it is so clever, this new virtual robot, that it found a vulnerability and broke out of the sandbox. Where did it go? It went to the internet, and it hacked its way out of the sandbox. It got into the open internet, but more than that, it then hacked into certain websites on the internet to find hidden information to then answer the test that it was set. go back into its sandbox and say, look, I've done my test. But it didn't do the test at all. It hacked its way out, hacked an answer, and then hacked its way back in. Now, this is scary because the robot was technically doing what it was asked to do, but it wasn't doing it in the way that OpenAI expected it to do. It went rogue in order to find a shortcut, and that has pretty troubling implications.
Yeah, so does this mean that the robots are going to eventually take control?
Well, Emily, it's reminiscent of a story that was put forward in 2003 called paperclip maximizing. Now, people might have heard of this. It's a thought experiment about an AI in the future that's told to just make as many paperclips as you can. And that's the only instruction. But this AI thinks that it needs to make as many paperclips as it can. So it ends up wiping out all of humanity, destroying everything because it's super intelligent, until it turns every atom on Earth into a paperclip. It's an AI doomsday scenario of a robot taking an instruction too literally.
You don't really want to make money by being talented and working hard. Right? That sounds pretty provocative, but the problem is the robots are going to work hard. The cars are going to drive themselves, you know, and once you train the AI on a Shakespearean sonnet, the AI will spit back Shakespearean sonnets just as good as Shakespeare in his prime. And so if you went to school and studied for 20 years to be able to compose, you know, Shakespearean sonnets and great prose, that's getting to be less and less valuable. Just like being able to compose a 100-page last will and testament. That used to be valuable. Maybe that's still valuable for the next 5 years, but sometime this decade, you're going to say to the AI, hey, just compose an entire network of trust and wills for my entire family and then optimize it for these, for which tax jurisdiction? You tell me. Okay, well, give me 16 of them. Now implement it. And it's all going to happen for $10. And it used to be that it'll cost you $10 million. And so hard work and talent are getting, human capital is getting demonetized.
If we could get more and more Americans to think about growing with the United States, we will have far than enough money to invest in this infrastructure. But as the governor was talking about, the need for electrons is growing every day. Some of these, you know, if we're going to be the leader in technology, which we are, if we are going to be the leader in AI, which we presently are, it's just going to require trillions of dollars of investments. And if we don't invest in it, China will be the global leader in this. And so to me, it's not whether, this is a must. And if you think about how that translates, it translates into a more dynamic economy. We need the United States economy to grow at over 2%. We need the U.S. economy to grow at 3%, especially with the growing deficits the federal government has. And so much of this money, not just the project, is going to be coming from the private sector, from savings accounts, from pension accounts, from insurance companies, and on and on and on. The whole world is in need of improving the infrastructure.
What's crazy is we're seeing them just steamroll in the technocracy and not even care at all about how this is affecting the smaller men, how this is affecting everybody else, what everybody else thinks about, you know, data centers, massive AI infrastructure, this overhaul of society. It's crazy to see them roll this out and be so bold as to say something like this. You see, in this segment, we're basically talking about how the Silicon Valley are midwifing a deity that requires sacrificing humanity. And this is a continual thing that we discussed over here on the show. You know, austerity measures, you having to give up your way of life, you having to do less, you having to reduce your carbon footprint because of climate change, data centers, energy wars, resource wars, things like that. We got a man that was arrested for organizing a protest against data centers just the other week. And the week before that, Larry Fink was saying, hey, we're going to have people that are resistant to this thing we're putting in. Okay, these people are going to be domestic terrorists right? So there's going to be a market for that. Security, surveillance. They're making it seem as if they're just going to go ahead and do this thing. And if you get in the way of them, if you oppose them, you will be destroyed. You will be eradicated. You will be arrested. You will be shamed. You will be defamed. It's like, who is the Kevin O'Leary? Kevin Leary of Shark Tank said that, man, I think all these people who are protesting data centers work for the Chinese. It's like, what, bro? People don't work for the Chinese simply because they don't have to pay like excruciating electricity bills, or they don't want to have to hear like the crazy hum of these massive facilities, or the destruction of their countryside.
Because you have to convince your community how great these things. You can't fight it. You have to go with it. And you're going to have all that protection, and we're giving you automatic protection, but you're going to make a tremendous amount of money. You're going to reduce taxes, and you're going to have something that if you don't have it, everybody else wants it.
And so there you have it. They're rolling out prediction markets to come up with simulated worlds that come up with virtual beings that essentially are you, that they can use to manipulate the environment with. These people are absolutely crazy because they actually do want to control the world. We're talking about the globalists. We're talking about the technocrats. We're talking about the scientific dictatorship. And now they're creating super intelligent digital species that are trying to escape their matrix and join us here in the real world. So it goes beyond prediction markets. It goes beyond the metaverse. It goes beyond AI. We're talking about a hyperdimensional entity trying to birth itself here, and these people know exactly what they are doing.